Well, hello everyone. We are once again at the end of another month here at the end of July 2025. So that means our stats are available for June 2025. So let's get into the numbers. This is your market update for Polk County, Florida. So Polk County saw 1,261 closed sales in June 2025. That's compared to 1,410 a year ago. That's a decrease of 10.6%. So definitely slower this year than it was a year ago. Cash sales as a percentage of closed sales, 19.6% of all sales were cash sales compared to 20.8% a year ago. That's a decrease of 5.8%. The median sales price, $307,990 compared to $323,770. That's a decrease of 4.9%, so almost 5% decrease in median sales price. Average sales price, $329,888 compared to $339,718. That's a decrease of 2.9%. So definitely saw prices drop, which is great news for home buyers, not as good news for home sellers. Median percent of original list price, 95.5% is how much sellers are receiving of their original list price. That's compared to 97.4% a year ago. That is a decrease of 2%. Median time to contract, so how long is it taking to go from listing to under contract, 56 days compared to 39 days a year ago, an increase of 43.6%, so almost 2 months to sell a home. And then median time to actually close, 96 days compared to 87 days, an increase of 10.3%. New pending sales, 1,313 compared to 1,352. That's a decrease of 2.9%. New listings, 1,577. That's compared to 1,852. That's a decrease of 14.8%. I think that sellers, being aware that the market is shifting, are holding back on listing right now. And so we're seeing a decrease in new listings. Pending inventory, 1,806. That's compared to 1,930. That's a decrease of 6.4%. Active inventory, 6,434 homes are active in the MLS in Polk County compared to 5,574. That's an increase of 15.4%. And then we have 5.4 month supply of inventory compared to 4.4 month supply of inventory a year ago, an increase of 22.7%. So technically still a seller's market, but very much closer to a balanced market. And there'll be specific zip codes where it is actually a buyer's market. So remember, real estate's very hyper-local, and so there can be variances zip code to zip code, and there could be variances even neighborhood to neighborhood as to whether you're in a buyer's or seller's market now that we're kind of close to the balanced market overall for the county. Tune in, we'll talk a little bit more about what this means moving forward and what we see ahead. Thank you. So I've talked in previous videos about how real estate very much is very local, hyper-local we call it. So there can be variances from city to city, zip code to zip code, neighborhood to neighborhood. And so you can even have where one neighborhood's in a buyer's market and another one's in a seller's market. But overall in Polk County, we are moving pretty close to a balanced market overall. Definitely pockets where it is a buyer's market now. For Winter Haven, I know I just looked at 33881 zip code, and we're actually in a buyer's market. I know that Kissimmee area is, which is outside of Polk County, but I know that area has been in a buyer's market for several months. But there are other areas that are still a seller's market. One of the things that we're seeing is we're starting to see sellers are being impacted by what they see happening in the market. And because they see that the market is switching to a buyer's market, there are sellers who are deciding not to list their homes. Again, there are going to be situations where sellers have to list. They got a job transfer, they're moving due to a family emergency, whatever. So there's always going to be homes for sale. But there were a lot of sellers that were selling to take advantage of the market. And now that the market is not so much in their favor, those sellers are going to hold off putting their homes on the market. They're going to try to time the market to when it's more advantageous for sellers. What that means is that while inventory has been going up, we're probably going to start to see a decrease in inventory. And when that happens, remember, inventory is your supply. That means the amount of supply relative to the amount of demand we have is actually going to decrease. And so if a supply goes down and demand stays the same, then eventually what's going to happen is prices are going to increase. Now, underlying all of this is still the economic uncertainty. I've been talking about this for several months. Tariffs are supposed to go into effect August 1st unless countries make trade deals with us. I don't know how many trade deals are going to come through versus how many countries are going to see increased tariffs. I do know that tariffs are going to increase prices for us. It's going to increase inflation. If inflation increases significantly, I doubt we're going to see the Federal Reserve lower rates. And so mortgage rates may remain kind of where they are. I think if there are a number of trade deals that happen and we don't see an increase in inflation, then the Federal Reserve is likely to decrease rates and we may see mortgage rates follow. What I do know is that if mortgage rates drop, buyer demand is going to increase significantly. There's a lot of buyers that have been waiting on interest rates. Now, I honestly think that's a mistake. I think an interest rate in the 6s is not all that bad overall if you look at mortgage rates historically. And because we are in a market where sellers are willing to negotiate, they're willing to give closing cost assistance, they're willing to negotiate, they're willing to make repairs, they're willing to give seller concessions. I think if you're a buyer, and honestly sellers are willing to lower prices, I've had several sellers do that. Now is a good time to get the best price on a home. And if you end up waiting for rates to go down, buyer demand is going to increase when that happens. And if sellers lag behind, like they've done on slowing down on how many are listing, then what's going to happen is you're going to have an inventory crunch again and prices are going to skyrocket. And so while you might get the lower mortgage rate, you're going to be financing more money as a buyer for the same home. So I do believe now is the time. If you're trying to time the market, now is the time. You can refinance later, but if you wait, you're going to be financing more money for the same home. For sellers, I think, it really depends on your situation. If you can wait, obviously it makes sense to wait. But if you need to sell for any number of reasons, there are still buyers out there. Just as there are always going to be homes for sale, because there's always people having job transfers, wanting to move closer to family, passing away, whatever. Life happens, and there's always reasons that sellers will need to sell. There's also always reasons that people need to buy. They're getting married, they're having a kid, they're adopting another pet, their job transfer, whatever. There's always things, again, in life that happen that mean there are going to be buyers that need to buy. So if you need to sell, there are going to be buyers out there. It's just harder to find them, and it's harder to make them pick your home over all the others that are available right now. And so how do you make your home more attractive? I think that obviously taking care of cosmetic things, taking care of roofs, taking care of air conditioning, making sure your electrical and plumbing is all sound. That's all really important because your buyer is going to want a move-in ready home. They're not going to want to walk into something that needs a ton of work. I think if you declutter and have your home staged nicely, that's going to help. Make sure you're working with a real estate agent, realtor that hires a professional photographer, and because that first impression online is really important. And make sure you have a realtor that's going to write more than a 3-sentence description of your home. The description does help buyers determine whether or not they're going to view your home. And so you want someone that's going to take some time on crafting that description, because that description is going to speak to different buyers. I think from a pricing standpoint, that's another way to make your home more attractive. Don't price it at the higher end of the market, price it lower. And the more motivated you are to sell, in other words, if you've got a job you need to get to by a certain time frame and you really need to get that home sold, you need to market the home or price the home at the low end of market value, maybe even a little below market value, and you'll sell it. If you have more time and you don't have to sell, then the best advice I can give you is be patient. You may have to have your listing agreement expire and renew, as long as you feel like your agent is doing a good job in actually marketing your home and getting exposure. And just be patient. I just recently had a client, it took her a year to decide to list. We actually took the photographs a year ago, well now 2 years ago, and then she had some health issues and couldn't find a home in Texas where she wanted to move to, and we listed her home a year later, so now almost a year ago, and we just went under contract in the last week. It took patience. We had to do a couple price drops, but she was in a small town that don't show up in people's search criteria. She had a wonderful home, a beautiful home, very nicely updated, only actually 4 years old, but did lots of upgrades to the home. There was nothing wrong with the home. It was getting exposure, but getting people to choose to look at the home was a challenge. But she was patient, I was patient, we tried different strategies. We ultimately got that home under contract, and we should be closing here in the next month. And then she can join her family in Texas. So it just takes patience, and make sure that you and your realtor are communicating about what your needs are. If they change, then your realtor needs to know, because they may need to change strategies. If you're a buyer, lastly, the other place to look, and I know I've said this in a number of videos, is to look at new home construction, because the builders are offering tons of incentives right now, buying interest rates down, paying all your closing costs, offering full appliance packages. If you're interested in that, please reach out to me. I hope you found this information helpful. If there are areas you want me to take a look at, or if you are interested in learning, maybe you're a first-time home buyer and this is all new to you, I have a buyer's guide available. Just comment below and I'd be happy to send that to you. And I have seller's guides as well, so if you're thinking of selling and you want some information, you can comment below as well, and I'll be happy to send that to you. As always, if you are looking to buy or sell in Central Florida, or if you know someone who is, please reach out to me. I'd love the opportunity to meet with you. Remember, you can't miss with Chris. Have a great day, everybody.